Greetings, I'm Doc V. And I want to talk today about memories. What things are most important in our lives? What things build our character, our hearts, our minds, and our spirits? It's not material things. Some of you think maybe having nice cars or traveling to different places or owning a big home or having a lot of extra money is something that is wonderful and a desire to obtain or a desire to have these things. Or some people believe that to receive and obtain material things is just the center of it all. But without someone to share these things with, the material is nothing. If you think back, if you're honest with yourself and you think back on things that you remember, things that impact your life the most, it's not going to be that pair of shoes that you had 20 years ago, or that suit that you had 15 years ago, or that car that you were driving 5 years ago, or that job that you wanted so bad that you finally obtained and were hired and you worked for a number of years. Those are things that are nice, and those are things that are necessary. But the impactful memories are not the material things, but they are stemmed around who you shared those material things with, and the experiences that you went through while driving those material things or wearing those material things. But it was about the relationship that you were in and who you were with, who you shared with, and who you were close to during those times of the material or the material things. I can recall, if we think back and we think about memories and things that happened in our past, I want to recall when I was young, used to race up and down the streets, used to race at school and race during choir practice at church and get in the street and see who was the fastest, and I was always fast. And of course, you all know I went on and I was a high school track star, and I went on and ran track for college. But I can recall before my heydays in track and field, I remember my dad used to outrun me. We'd be in the backyard and take off and run and touch the fence, and Dad would have to slow down because he was so much bigger than me. And then I'd hit the fence and bounce back, and I'd try to beat him, and Dad would catch me and outrun me. And I remember this, I couldn't beat him. But years later, as I became stronger and I started growing to a young man, I believe I had to be around 13, 14 years old. And we were at the Sunday school picnic, and we had the water balloon toss. They had corn, chicken, hamburgers, hot dogs. They had the flames out there where people were roasting marshmallows. It was just a wonderful time. All the soda you could drink, lemonade, Kool-Aid, people just kicking back, going down the slides, somewhere in the swimming pool. It was just a wonderful, wonderful time for our church folks to relax and to fellowship with one another. Well, anyway, they had the big race, and I knew I was one of the fastest runners of all the boys in the church, and I was like, this is my time to show off in front of all these saints and friends and relatives. So we had this long line. I guess it was 20 people wide. Really, when you're running track in a track meet, the race is only supposed to be about 6, 7, 8 lanes, but we were like 15, 20 wide. And me and my dad were in the middle. And I said, I'm about to outrun my dad in front of everybody, in front of the church pastor, in front of my cousins, in front of Bubby, in front of Clint, in front of Jeff, in front of Alvin, in front of all my friends. I'm about to beat my dad running. And they were down there and they said, runners, to your mark. Runners, get set, go. I was kicking up dirt. Everybody was screaming, they were cheering, and all of a sudden I feel myself pulling ahead of everybody. And we were going down the field, I guess it was about 100 yards, and we were going down the field, and it was like, I'm beating Dad, I'm beating Dad. And all of a sudden, in the corner of my eye, I saw this big chest coming by me and arms pumping. And I was like, it's my dad. My dad's trying to get me. So I'm starting to dig in, and they were like cheering. I could see them cheering. All the people that sang in the choir and people that on the baseball team, on the soccer team, and everybody was watching. And I was running and running. And all of a sudden, I saw the tape about 20, 30 yards to go. I said, I'm going to beat Dad. I'm going to beat him. And I started pulling ahead. And all of a sudden, my dad reached out and he bumped me with his elbow. He just bumped me. And it threw me off. And I lost my stride. And by the time I got my stride back, my dad went on and he hit the tape, hit the finish line. And I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? Dad. And my dad was down, holding his knees, trying to catch his breath. And I was like, Dad, you cheated me, Dad. And Dad was down there and he was holding his breath. And he said, son, and he's trying to take his breath. He said, I want you to know one thing. And I'm sitting there like, Dad, this is my chance. What are you doing? He said, I want you to know, son, remember this. You've never beaten me. You've never outrun me. I said, Dad, oh. And from that day on, my dad never raced me. He never raced me again. I turned 15, turned 16. I said, Dad, come on. You want some? Come on, Dad. Up the driveway, in the dirt, in the field, through the woods. Come on, Dad, run me. Dad was like, remember, son, you've never beat me. So I grew stronger and faster, went on to high school and set like 17 records in Lorain County. In high school, I've got offers to 3 or 4 different colleges, and I went on, and by the time I was a senior in college, I was senior MVP, ran the 110-meter high hurdles, led off the 4x1 relay, and ran the open 200. So I took my aggression out on other collegiate athletes. I didn't win them all, but I did pretty well. I remember going off to the state championship, and I placed in 2 events. And the best I could do was third place in the hurdles. And all the coaches and the college representatives were running toward the athletes at the finish line. And they were all coming to me, giving me their card and wanting my parents, my dad's number so they can call him and talk to him. And I'm sitting there trying to catch my breath. Into the state championship, I got 3rd in the state of Ohio. And I'm like, why are y'all coming to talk with me? I said, I got 3rd. Those 2 guys walking over there, they beat me. How come you're not talking to them? And what they told me was that I was on National Honor Society. I had a 3-point something GPA for high school. And they said because of that, that moved me ahead of these other young men, because they said they checked the academic records of the other young men and they were deficient in a lot of areas. And they felt that even though they beat you, they're probably not going to complete a 4-year college degree, and we probably won't be able to hold on to them. But you, Vaughn Shores, not only did you get 3rd place, and you were right behind them, we'll train you and get you faster, but you were National Honor Society, your college potential. So that being said, you are the #1 pick. I didn't know this. And I was like, wow, Isn't that something? By the way, when I ran that third place, I remember that whole month I was breaking records, getting myself ready. And I said, Dad, I'm going to run. I'm going to make it to state. And he was like, yeah, whatever. And then we got close to the day to take off. I said, Dad, I'm the only one on the track team that made it to state. And Dad's like, yeah, whatever. But do you know that when I crossed that finish line and I got third place and it was all over with and the colleges were trying to recruit me, I looked up and I saw this big man walking out of the stands, sunglasses on, a hat, and a bag on his shoulder and a camera. And I looked at him. And I said, Dad, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Dad came down, smiled, took his sunglasses off, and I hugged him and he hugged me. My dad was a big man. I take after my mom. My dad's a big man. My dad said, he said, son, I was with you all the time. I was with you all the time. Nice going. Gave me a hug. These are the type of memories that never leave us. The brand new track shoes that I had, the suit that I wore on that Sunday, the barbecue I had at the Sunday school picnic, that was nice. And it's a cute memory. But it was the relationships. It was the connection with loved ones. It was racing my dad and him telling me, you've never beat me, son. And then him playing it off and then following and driving 2-3 hours to Columbus, Ohio, to the state track meet, the second place I finished that I had in the hurdles. The memories of my dad coming off that stage, coming off the bleachers and looking at me and smiling, saying, I was with you all the time. These are the things we remember and never forget. I talked to my sister today. Mother's Day is coming up, and my brother's birthday is coming up tomorrow, May 8th. Happy birthday, Vince. Haven't seen him in a while. He lives in another state, but I miss him. And I think of our memories. Me and my brother Vince, we would joust on who was the strongest and who was the ugliest and who could, who the girls wanted to talk to, And boy, we could joan, boy. We had my dad, he told us, do not talk about anybody's mama. Do not say anything profane. Do not use any cuss word, or you're going to get a whooping. And my dad followed through. If he said he's going to whoop your tail if you did this, he's going to whoop you. So because Dad set those limitations, we were very skilled in joning each other. We had things like you grasshopper, monkey head looked like I bumped my head, forgot to catch my face when I fell, looking, oh, where's the comb? What's wrong with your head? We did it the Bill Cosby way. Bill Cosby was a comedian and he never used bad language, but he could just talk about silly, everyday stuff and crack you up. Steve Harvey can do that also. So I remember my brothers growing up, me and Vincent, my sister Kathy. Brian was the biggest and strongest of all the kids. And me and Vincent would slap box and play and wrestle and bump each other. And then we would look at Brian, like me and Vincent, we're like, 200 pounds. Vincent's a little under 200 pounds now. I'm around 200 pounds. And Brian is like 220, all muscled up. So we would wrestle and bustle around, and then we look at Brian and we were like, okay. And we would just keep on going. So what I'm trying to say is memories, relationships, people that touched our lives, people that were there for us. There's so many memories that I have about people that when I had no place to stay, when I was homeless, this happened to me years back, and someone put me up in their basement rather than me being outside. And how God lifted me up from that and placed me on a high place. And I'm so thankful. And the relationships that I developed during those low times are still with me today. There's people in my life now that they could call me up. Hey, I need $500. I don't have time to explain, but I need it. I'll get it back to you next week. And there's not even a question about it, because of the relationship and the foundation that was established. I've got some friendships and connections here in the metro Atlanta area, and I also have some friendships that were established back in Ohio. And there's a brother that I call my big brother. And his words are so enriching in the years that we go back and the conversations that we've had. He's like a brother. No matter what happens, he's a brother to me. Those that know me, if I say Alvin, you know who he is. And those that don't know my history, where I'm from, you won't know, but I'll just say it that way. And he's a friend to many. And he's a leader and an example to many, as far as his heart and soul, just pure before the Lord. His words are just powerful and encouraging and enriching at all times. I'm hoping that because of my experiences and what I've been through, I'm hoping that I am a light and a positive energy to others that I meet and people that I encounter, because only what we do for Christ or what we do for others will last. Buildings, cars. I can remember this car I just thought I just had to have, the Thunderbird Turbo Coupe. It was like 20 something years ago. I was like, this got to have this car. And now I wouldn't be caught in that car. It's a piece of junk. Or I just really wish I had this, got to get this house. I got to get it. And it fell through and I didn't get it. And the Lord blessed me. I ended up with an even better situation, better interest rate, better house, better situation. So I've learned not to get tied up in things, but to get tied up in people and in their spirits and their hearts and their souls, and try to help them by being an example, by having a positive word for them, by sharing memories with friends and relatives and loved ones, because this is the only thing that's going to last. What you do for Christ, it's what's going to last. I'm Doc V, and I'm going to see you next time. See you next time.